That is how you know it's a good mask.
We're live? Okay. Just making sure, I'm just checking the live stream. That's not the live stream.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
We'll be right there.
Are we live on your phone?
Okay, we're good.
We're good. Hey, there we go.
Okay. I don't even need my mic. I'm just going to talk next to you, and then you can pick up.
I can.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. We are so glad to be here tonight. We are joined by our resident rabbinic scholar, Rabbi Olshein, and we are just so excited to have her here on our Bima officially for the first time in this role, right?
In this role, yeah. Absolutely. I had to wear my Ner Tamid mask.
Yeah, we're both wearing it. So if you haven't gotten it, $5.
It's amazing.
You can get it at Sunday school next week if you don't want to order it. We also are joined by the family of Brooke Kaseff for her Mitzvah, which begins tonight, which will be called to the Torah tomorrow morning. And also with a bunch of you who have sent in your cardboard cutouts. We see you here in this congregation. We might be able to give you a sneak peek later tonight. It's pretty cool. Like, it makes us feel like the sanctuary is full. You are life-size and you're dressed for your best. So what could be better?
It's great.
It's really cool.
I just posted it on my Facebook page a few minutes ago, and I know that some of our colleagues are going to be jumping on the bandwagon now that they've seen it in synagogues, not just in sports arenas.
Yes, for sure.
They are jumping on.
It's true, and this is the power of teamwork of a congregation. So Danny McLaughlin is the one that said, we should do what the Dodgers are doing, and I was like, that's a good idea. And then I brought that to our membership, and they were like, yeah, and then one thing led to another, and now here you all are in our congregation. You might be at home and here, which is just so cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
What was it? Oh,
They're all fasting.
For Yom Kippur specifically, but they'll fast a little later. All right, so I think we have some announcements here. Tomorrow morning we have Torah study at 8:45, and
that's with Rabbi Axelrod tomorrow.
Rabbi Axelrod, yeah. And that will be Brooke, our parsha this week. Religious school, we are off this Sunday for Labor Day. We gave you one Sunday on, one Sunday off, so enjoy, sleep in. No virtual class, no nothing. That's awesome. And then September 13th we'll be back, so there'll be one last chance to register then, or you can still do the online form. And so the office will be closed on the 7th in observance of Labor Day.
It says big reminder here on our sheet.
Yeah.
Big. What's the big reminder?
So there's a lot of family programs for high holidays. You're going to be receiving a ticket in the mail. You might think, what am I going to do with this ticket? I can't take it to the temple. That's okay. You're going to put it on your fridge or by your computer or wherever you're going to be watching us, and it'll have a list of main services that you can attend that only members or people who have decided to donate to get the link are going to be able to join us. So it's a very special ticket. And on top of that, we have some family programming for our religious school students. So I'm just going to run through it, but if you go on the website, you'll find everything. We have our High Holiday Boot Camp, which is going to be, the last one is Tuesday. Is that you?
It's me.
Okay.
We're talking about tzedakah. Everybody needs to learn more about tzedakah.
True. And then we have our Adult Education with Pam Poster. That is September 9th, 6 to 7, followed by Hebrew Level 1, 7:15 to 8:15. You can pick up your Machzorim for the High Holidays through the you can purchase them on the CNT website for $54, and they will arrive here so you can pick them up. Face masks, like I said, $5. Show up for Shabbat cutouts, $54. You can purchase those online as well. It's okay. So high holiday program. So let's see what I can do from my memory here. Rosh Hashanah morning, the 19th, not next Saturday morning, but the Saturday morning after, we're going to join in the parking lot, and we're going to have some great activities below the shofar, be together in person. And you do have to sign up in advance for that because we're only allowing 50 people. So there is a link online. Then, the next day will be Tashlich. A few more people can come to that, and also please sign up online. That'll be at Sunset Park, and we have some great activities in our Tashlich ceremony, which is brief and wonderful. And then for Yom Kippur morning, we also have a family program at 9 a.m. Also in the parking lot, also need to sign up. And lastly, for Yom Noraim, we have our Havdalah, tailgate, break the fast. So you come with your car, you're going to back into a fun spot, you're going to be able to break the fast with your friends, even though it might look a little different this year, and we'll conclude Yom Kippur together after the sunset. So that'll be at 7:15. You also need to sign up. Everything you have to sign up for now, you have to get your name because very limited. It's very exclusive here.
And we want
Also
to,
a pandemic, but
we
it's exclusive.
we know we're selling out. So you got to rush and register now.
It's true. Sicily is next Saturday night, and it's almost sold out. So we're at I think I can let 10 more people in. So go ahead and click that link as well.
Click the links. Click the links and get your seats.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
We want to see you in person, so let's sell that out as far as we can.
That's
In a
wonderful.
safe way. I'm ready for Shabbat.
I can't tell you. You're going to hear how badly I need Shabbat. So what should we start with?
I think we should start with Shalom Aleichem and welcome the Shabbat angels.
I need those angels.
Yeah, and if you're following along in your Siddur, 142 is going to be the page number that we're going to start on.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zerchem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. And so I say welcome to everyone who's joining us both in person. We have a few people who are here to celebrate with our Bat Mitzvah family, but also everyone online. Thank you for welcoming me back to Congregation Ner Tamid. I want to start tonight by bringing up an adaptation from the great Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. There's this wonderful reading right before the Amidah, but I think that there's another place where it works perfectly. And he taught us the following. He said, prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. As Cantor mentioned, in the midst of all this craziness of this pandemic, some of us do need help rebuilding our souls, and so we're grateful that you're here to pray with us this Shabbat. We'll continue with the candle blessing now.
And we call forward our Bat Mitzvah, Brooke, Kaseff, to help us in lighting the Shabbat candles. If you're following page 120. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we by our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, etzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Continuing now with Lacha Dodi Likrat Kala Panei Shabbat Nakabela. Come, let us greet the Sabbath bride. We will be singing from page 138 if you have your Siddurim with you. page 138, and we'll rise on the last verse and face the entrance to greet the Sabbath bride.
We'll do verses 1, 2, and 9.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shemo tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, Ki hi mekor hamracha, Merosh mikadem nesucha, Tov ma'aseh b'machshava rila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. Ohi v'shalom aterevala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, Toch emunei am segura, Mo'i chalam. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Panei Shabbat nekabela. Having sung Lecha dodi, one of the beautiful pieces of the Kabbalat Shabbat worship section of tonight's service, we now turn to the Baruch Hu, which is our call to worship. And so I ask you this week, what have you been called to do before this time when are about to be called to worship? What feeling have you felt? Some sort of urgency? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later this evening. The Baruch Hu is a call and response prayer, and so I invite you to rise if you're able for our call to worship so that you can respond. Yes, you are ready to pray. La 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 la. You're good. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam va'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam va'ed. Continuing on page 149 in our prayer books. In the middle of the page, this is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. And continuing over on page 151 in our prayer books. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery.
Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Hear, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
Please be seated as we continue with Ve'ahavta, found on page 154.
Ushafbecha, ufkumecha, ushartam leot, al yadecha, v'chayu letotafot, benenecha, uftatam, al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tiskelu, v'asitem, et kumitzvotai, v'yatem kedoshim lelochem, ani, Adonai Elohechem, Asher Tzatziatem Me'eres Mishrayim Leot Lachem Lelohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Going from understanding how we express our love for God, to saying thank you to God for liberating us from everything holding us back in our lives. Our song of liberation, Mi Chamocha, to a beautiful High Holy Days melody. Continuing on page 160 in our prayer books, we find an interpretive version of the Hashkivenu. Page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hopes in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will.
Understanding among us, let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivayinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivayinu, leShalom. Ve'ha'amitenu, Shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu, Sukkot shlomecha. Hashkivayinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivayinu, leShalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
In our prayer books, we now turn to the beginning of the Amidah, our standing prayer. And what we find on page 165 is a piece from Ferdinand Isserlis. It says, "Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you." The Amidah begins on page 164 and continues on even-numbered pages.
Adonai sefativ tifta ufia gitehilateha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Ve'onei Hakol, Yichzer Aseh Avot v'Ima'ot, U'mekni Geulav Livneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ala, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Malkei Avraham le'atra Sarah, atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol, atah le'Oshia, Mori Hagar, Mechayeh Chaim bechesed, Mechayeh Hakol berachamim rabim, Somech nofim ve'ochei holim, Umatzir hasurim, Umekayeh emunato, Mishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umido melech, Melech mikmim, Umechayeh, Umatzmi akeshiwa, V'aneimana tahayotako. Baruch atah Adonai mekadeh ha'akol.
Kadosh Shimcha Kadosh, Ukadoshim b'chol yom me'alucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue in silent devotion through page 180, using the prayers on the right or the left side of the page or the words within your heart. When you have completed your prayers, please be seated.
In our prayer books, we turn now to page 371 as we think of all those in our circle of family and friends who are in need of a prayer for healing. The congregation thinks of the following individuals this week: Paul Schiffman, Jill Balick, Patrick Fellows, Amy Bennett DeFrank, Art Marshall, and Devora Batmalka. But there are so many more within our own circles who are in need of prayers of healing of the body, the mind, and the spirit. We must think of those not only suffering from physical injury, chronic illness, but also those suffering from mental illness and addiction as we say our prayers for healing. If you could at this time, please submit names, and we will include all of these individuals in our prayers as well at this time.
Kelly Stein, Ashton Alito, thinking of my mom, Elaine Enton, Carol Carter, Marilyn Goldstein, and Betty Thompson. Kurt Plotkin, Ryan McIntyre, Joseph Hodler, Jerry Locke, Max Tabak, Jeff Brenner.
Page 371, our Misha Baruch for healing.
Zelda LaForce.
May the source of strength, the
Shabbat shalom, everyone. For those of you who might not know me yet, I do want to share a little bit about myself before my teaching. You see, I have been affiliated with Congregation Ner Tamid for 20 years now, starting as a congregant deeply involved in Jewish learning here, then a board member and vice president of the congregation before beginning rabbinical school. And while I was in school, I was fortunate to work 4 full-time summers and 2 academic years here as the rabbinic intern at Congregation Ner Tamid. So, the highlight of my time in rabbinical school, I have to share, involves actually being part of CNT. You see, I was so blessed. 40 members of this congregation actually boarded a bus and went to Los Angeles to be present at my ordination. When I went from being a lawyer to being a lawyer and a rabbi. After 4 years in Austin, Texas, and now 8 years, most recently in West Palm Beach, Florida, I decided that it was time to come home to my beloved Las Vegas and to my beloved Congregation Ner Tamid. You see, I want, and I am, writing my first book. And being Congregation Ner Tamid's resident rabbinic scholar is allowing me to teach, which I love doing, occasionally lead services with our fabulous cantor and our rabbi. And it gives me the opportunity to do something that I am passionate about, and that is teaching through writing. But most importantly, well, maybe not most importantly, but it allowed me to come home. And the challenge that I found with the idea of coming home meant that I had to pack up all of my belongings that I had collected over the past 12 years and bring that household home to my house, which I was still fortunate to have here in Las Vegas, to that house that already existed, taking a household in Florida and a household in Vegas and merging them together, packing up all of that stuff. Can you imagine? 2 households, 1 house. Well, it took 55 days, believe it or not, for all my stuff to arrive, which was about 10 days ago. 55 days. That, I think I could have carried it on my back as fast as the moving company brought it here. Well, 55 days. You see, one of the best lessons that 55 days gave me was, well, only in hindsight, I realized, did I actually need all of my stuff that was so important to me, that I felt such a sense of urgency about packing up and schlepping it across the country? I mean, really, if you can go 55 days without something, can't you go 56 or 57 or, well, you get the idea. If you can go 2 months without it, how badly do you really need it? So these boxes, they finally show up, and I have to tell you, I am absolutely overwhelmed with this stuff. I have everything everywhere in boxes taller than me, stacked to the brim. And of course, in the midst of those 55 days when I was waiting for my things to arrive, my to-do list, well, I became a bit overwhelmed with that as well, because as I was crossing things off, it seemed like I was adding 2 more things onto that list. Cross 1 off, add 2 is not a great way to manage your life. Now, here's the thing. I know that I am not alone, and it's not really about moving things across the country. In this pandemic, I have been talking to people about how overwhelmed they are with sort of the simplicity of life, right? You know, we're not able to go out and do as many things, and yet our to-do lists are getting longer and longer for many people. And some of those people feel the way I have felt, and that is just a little bit paralyzed. Just a little bit paralyzed. Once easy tasks take more effort, and that's when the paralysis does set in. I do have to say that those lists, even if they're growing longer, they do seem to help. But what really helps is the idea of figuring out what is a priority item on my list. So I want to share with you something known as the Eisenhower principle. Some of you may be familiar with it. It comes from President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and this was his main organizing principle. He taught what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. Now, best-selling author Stephen Covey, he took President Eisenhower's organizing principle, and he developed a very large body of work on the 7 principles for highly effective people, and some of you may be familiar with it. What he did was he took this idea of urgency and importance, and he gave us a little chart. The chart actually says you have to think about things in terms of what's urgent and important, what's not urgent and not important, and then what's urgent and not important, and what's important and not urgent. Think about that for a moment. Is everything that's urgent actually important in your life? You know, here we are in the month of Elul, this month when we are supposed to be introspective. We're supposed to reflect on how we have behaved, how we have treated people, what we have actually accomplished in the year that has passed. We're supposed to make amends with those whom we have hurt, and we are supposed to be in the process of changing our ways in order to live as better humans and as better Jews in the year to come. In this week's Torah portion called Ki Tavo, we hear lots of obligations that the Israelites were given as they were about to cross over into the Promised Land. Obligations that they undertook. Obligations that helped them define what was important to them and what would be important to their success and what would be important to their happiness once they crossed over into the land of Israel. What's urgent is not always important. Well, during this week's Torah portion, we also hear the most often quoted commandment yet again, and we hear it twice. We're taught that we are supposed to take care of the orphan and the widow and the stranger 36 times in our sacred scriptures. So do you think that might be something that we could consider important? And maybe Judaism, our Jewish teachings, are trying to tell us that this too should also be urgent in our lives. If you hear something 36 times, perhaps it falls into both categories of urgent and important. We're also taught that we're supposed to set aside our first fruits, the beginnings of whatever that we gather, and we're supposed to tithe, to give a tenth of what we have to make this world a better place for all who live in it. We're supposed to also recite a passage that becomes incredibly important in our Passover Seder, where we recite that our fathers were wandering Arameans. Imagine what that means, that our fathers were homeless, that they were forced to go and live someplace where they did not want to live. They were forced to go down to Egypt. They were forced to live a life not filled with safety, not filled with comfort. And only now, as they are getting ready to enter into the Promised Land, now literally by the grace of God, at this point in our sacred story, we are about to enter into the Promised Land. Now, I sort of referenced it before, but my own personal Promised Land is Vegas. And to be able to return to my home and to return to so many people that I love so dearly is an absolute blessing. Yet, as I said before, my physical blessings that accompanied me on this journey back home arrived 55 days after I did. I had to live without all those things, and I figured out how to make do with less. And yes, I can tell you, I am probably going to be overwhelmed with all those boxes for many, many weeks to come. But those boxes have actually helped me clarify what is urgent and what is important in my life. And one of the things that I am blessed to say is that I'm actually getting help with my boxes. Some of us just need help figuring out what's urgent versus what's important. Some of that help can come from reading Jewish texts and learning about what our faith tradition teaches us about how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to treat each other, the choices that we are supposed to make. So I'm taking this month of Elul to try to reprioritize with all my heart and soul, to reprioritize the people to whom I am obligated, the things to which I am obligated, and to get rid of some of those things that I should not feel obligated to. This month of self-reflection, man, it's a gift, if only we choose to take it. And Torah, for me at least, does help me figure out what is most important in my life. And I dare say that this pandemic has been actually some sort of backwards gift to a lot of people. They've told me that they've had these many months to reflect backwards, to realize that some of the things that they thought were important actually weren't in their lives. So I'm working on being better able to prevent the non-urgent things in my life from becoming urgent. And I'm working on making sure that I prioritize the things that I really do believe are important, stay important to me. Because if I'm able to do that, if I keep my eye on what is important this High Holy Days season, it will be so much more meaningful for me. And I dare say it will be more meaningful for you. Uvachein, and then. Uvachein, and then, when wholeness and peace are restored. These uvacheins, these are part of our High Holy Days liturgy. And I believe that doing this hard work during the month of Elul will allow me to have a better sense of being whole and a sense of peace being restored to my life. Shabbat Shalom.
Our service on page 586 with Aleinu. Please rise as you are able.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gidula le'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegei haratzon, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchakenu kahem, vegor aleinu kecho hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umordim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim,
Our thoughts now turn to those who have died in recent days and those for whom this is the anniversary of their passing. And we ask you to place your names in the chat if you have people that you would like to be remembered at this time. We first remember those who have died in recent days. Don Buchanan, Marcia Britt, Stacy Bell, Carmen Garcia, Shelley Schneider, and Gerald Jerry Friedman. We also remember the following individuals for whom this is the anniversary of their passing or their yard site this week. We remember Howard Aberman, Sylvia Adler, Harry Bale, Elaine Barnett, Mark Bernstein, Jerome Borohoff, Neil Bryn, Ronald Carney, Jenny Cavadio, Warren Davis, Nikki Devine, Anna Dubrow, Harry Dvorak, Ruth Enton, Leonard Fruchter, Philip Frusch, Frederick Goldstein, Irving Goldstein, Adolph Greif, Fanny Greif, June Harris, Max Harris, Sam Kabakoff, Irving Kastenbaum, Stanley Klein, Joseph Lang, John Lazarus, Frank Linden, Jack Miller, Irene Moguni, Mary Moreno, Manny Pogach, Fern Premack, Mary Ripley, Chaim Roth, Sylvia Rubin, Irving Rubenstein, Shelley Shorenstein, Mary Annie Tobiansky, Mark Vogel, Celia Watman, Elizabeth Weiss, and Lorelei Wozniak. If I've mispronounced someone's name, or perhaps there is someone we'd inadvertently left off our most recent losses or our yard site list, we invite you to share their names online. Or if there's anyone present who would like to remember a lost soul.
Robert Zendinger, Jerry Steinberg, Kia Zarley, Emil Levitch, Sammy Braun. Larry Kubit, Cindy Markin, Amelia Lemon, Eugene Van Dyke.
We take these individuals into our hearts as we remember them with love and respect and say these words, hallowed by the generations, as found on page 598, Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. We say, Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach chirute ve'amlich malchute v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye deho beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehe shmei rabba mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei dekudisha Richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush v'chata v'nechemata, ta'amiran belma v'imru. Amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shamaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. O say shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and bring comfort to all those who are bereaved, both among us and those who are bereaved all around the world. And together we say, Amen. If you're standing, I invite you to be seated.
Unless you're celebrating a 20th wedding anniversary. Surprise!
Surprise!
So, okay. We have a very special weekend for the Kaseff family because it's not only Brooke's bat mitzvah, but she is also celebrating her parents, Allison and Brian, having their 20th wedding anniversary together. And so they're going to come up and be blessed by us. This is our first pandemic anniversary blessing in person. Like, that's something, right?
So come on around. So come on around and stand over there.
Talk to your husband about that.
Stand over that way.
I don't know anything about it.
Welcome to the Bima over there. had planned to open the ark doors. We have a virtual opening of the, there we go. No,
There we go.
ah.
I don't know where the pole went.
So I'm going to actually ask you, if you don't mind, you can take 2 steps back, and I'm going to ask you to look at each other, because this blessing is about you. No, look at, there we go. Look, we're going to ask you to look at each other, and we just ask God's blessing upon you. You have celebrated. You are in the midst of this 20th anniversary together. You can hold her hand, by the way. Okay. So 20 years ago-ish, you looked into each other's eyes and you said these words, "I do," committing to each other to love, honor, respect, to cherish each other in both good times and bad. And along the journey, you may have had a challenge or two, but you have worked your way through all of those challenges to come together to celebrate in front of family and friends your daughter's bat mitzvah weekend this weekend. Overcoming lots of things to bring you together here. She might be taking your picture right there. May you be blessed with wisdom and compassion for each other, understanding, and of course, lots and lots of love. That is what will carry you through to the next 20 years and the 20 years after that, and maybe even the 20 years after that.
All right, so we have to say Siman Tov and Mazel Tov and finish this occasion.
Mazel tov, mazel tov, and siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, and siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, and siman tov. Yehelanu, 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 Ulecho Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. So we say Mazel Tov and many, many more.
Thank you.
We'll do it after. There we go. So I have the opportunity to say thank you now to the Kaseffs for participating in our worship and giving us another opportunity to celebrate. I'd like to say thank you to my colleague,
Thank you to you.
Cantor, and of course, we can't forget Ricky. He always makes a beautiful worship experience for all of us.
All right, so we have a very special Kiddush and Motzi tonight. We not only invite Brooke forward, but also her grandfather is going to come forward and share in the Kiddush and Motzi with her. And we have a very special cup, a Kiddush cup that she's using. It's from her dad's bar mitzvah, is that right? Okay, so that'll be for her tonight, and we will celebrate and say our blessings with that Lador Vador from generation to generation.
Okay. Look how beautiful these are. Wait, I'm turning it around this way so you will have your Kiddush cup. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
L'chaim.
And our challah tonight, I know we're having technical difficulties, hopefully you're hearing me. Our challah tonight is to a heart. It was made by the Polises, and it is cinnamon sugar, which I hear is your favorite. All right. Hopefully we heard that. So we want to see it. We're going to do a little close-up here if we can. All right.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Thank you.
Grandpa needs a piece. I'll get mine later. Cantor, do we have a closing song?
We do. It was by special request. The Nava Tehillah Osei Shalom. Eating with my, I'm talking my mouth full.
She's going to sing with her mouth full, too.
Brooke's gonna lead it.
Osei Shalom Bimroma, Huyasei Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akol Yisrael, Ve'akol Yashvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Osei Shalom Bimroma, Huyasei Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akol Yisrael, Ve'akol Yashvei Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen. Thank you to Rabbi Sanford Axelrod for allowing me to share his bima. Thank you, Cantor. Again, one more time, Ricky. And thank all of you for joining us online to celebrate Shabbat with Congregation Near Tamid. Shabbat.